She signed away her soul at 16 for art that would live forever. Now, with 3 months until her 30th birthday, a demon is coming to collect. But the creature sent to drag her to hell offers her something impossible. A child. Her child. The one thing her broken body could never give her. All she has to do is agree to bring a baby into the world, knowing that child will be hunted, hated, and condemned from her first breath. Damned to pay for her mother's sins. He's a Nephilim. Split down. The middle. Half angel and half demon. With a face divided between light and shadow, and eyes that burn with both heaven and hell. He says he can rebuild what's broken inside her. Give her the womb she lost. Create life where there should be none. But the cost isn't hers to pay. It's his. Every piece of his fractured soul. Every fragment of the person he used to be. He'll unmake himself so she can become a mother. So she can survive. And he's willing to do it for one devastating reason. Because somewhere between protecting her from nightmares and holding her through the darkness, this creature who shouldn't be capable of love fell anyway. And now she has to choose. Accept damnation as payment for her teenage mistake. Or bring a child into existence knowing that baby will suffer every day of her life. Knowing the man she's falling for will disappear. Fragment by fragment. Until there's nothing left but the memory of his sacrifice. Some choices don't have right answers. Some loves don't have happy endings. And some prices are paid in pieces of soul that can never be reclaimed. But what happens when a mother's love collides with a father's sacrifice and a demon lord's contract? The tattoo gun buzzed in Mara's hand like a dying wasp, and she was 3 inches into shading the phoenix on her client's shoulder blade when she felt it. That cold, crawling sensation between her vertebrae, the one that meant someone was watching. She didn't look up, didn't flinch, just kept the needle. Steady, dragging black ink through skin with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. But her pulse kicked against her throat, rabbiting beneath the choker she wore specifically to hide it. The bell above her studio door hadn't chimed. She'd locked it an hour ago when the sun dropped behind the buildings across the street, painting her windows in shades of rust and shadow. Late appointments only. Cash only. No questions asked. That's how she survived in this neighborhood where rent was cheap because nobody asked why you kept your lights on until 3 a.m. or why you sometimes had bruises you didn't remember getting. The buzz of the tattoo gun filled the silence. Her client, some finance bro getting his quarter-life crisis permanently marked on his body, scrolled through his phone with his free hand, oblivious. But Mara felt it. That presence, heavy as smoke, pressing against the back of her neck. She finished the last stroke of shadow, set down the gun, and reached for the antiseptic. Her hands didn't shake, couldn't afford to let them. "We're done," she said, voice flat. "That'll be 300. The guy barely glanced at the mirror before shoving bills into her hand. He was out the door in under 2 minutes, too focused on whatever Tinder match was waiting to notice the way Mara stood frozen, staring at the corner of her studio where the shadows pooled too thick, where something was definitely, absolutely standing. "I'm not scared of you," she said to the empty room. Her voice didn't waver. Couldn't afford to let it. She'd spent 13 years building this armor, this life where she didn't need anyone, didn't trust anyone, didn't break for anyone. The shadow moved, not like a person stepping forward, like the darkness itself decided to peel away from the wall, pulling itself into a shape that shouldn't exist. Tall, impossibly tall. And when the shape finally solidified into something resembling a man, Mara's breath stopped in her chest. Because his face was wrong. Not deformed, not scarred. Just divided. The left side was angular and pale, with markings that looked like silver had been poured beneath his skin in intricate spiraling patterns. His eye on that side was the color of winter fog, so light it was almost colorless. Beautiful in the way ice sculptures are beautiful. Cold, untouchable. The right side was shadow made flesh, dark tattoos that moved, that writhed like living things beneath skin the color of old bruises. His eye on that side burned red, not like blood, like embers buried in ash, waiting to ignite. His hair followed the same impossible division. White on the left, falling in waves that caught the dim light. Black on the right, absorbing it. Mara had seen a lot of things in this neighborhood. Drugs, violence, desperation in every flavor it came in. But nothing had prepared her for this. Mara Chen. His voice was double-layered, like two people speaking in perfect unison but from different rooms. One voice smooth as silk, the other rough as gravel. We need to talk about the art you created 13 years ago. Her hand moved on instinct, reaching for the pepper spray she kept under the counter. But he was faster, not walking. Just suddenly there, his hand wrapped around her wrist before she could blink. His touch burned. Literally burned, heat searing through her skin like she'd grabbed a live wire. She jerked back, and he let her go immediately, something flickering across the pale side of his face. Regret, maybe. Or hunger. Hard to tell. Don't touch me. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never met you. No. The word came from the darker half of his mouth, that rougher voice taking dominance. But you signed a contract, blood and ink, at 16 years old, in a basement that smelled like incense and bad decisions. The memory slammed into her like a fist to the sternum. She was 16 again, angry, grieving. Her parents had died 3 months earlier in a car crash that everyone called a tragedy, but that she knew, somehow knew in her bones, was something else, something deliberate. And she'd been so desperate to feel anything other than the gaping wound in her chest that when that woman approached her outside the underground art show, promising eternal art, promising that her creations would live forever, Mara had followed her down those stairs. The ritual had seemed harmless, dramatic. Sure, candles and chanting and some kind of archaic language she didn't understand. But she'd been 16 and stupid, and so goddamn broken that when the woman cut her palm and pressed it to an ancient-looking piece of parchment, Mara had barely felt the sting. Eternal art, the woman had whispered. Your work will never die, will never fade. Sign here, and everything you create will have life. And God help her, Mara had signed. That wasn't real. But even as she said it, she knew. She'd always known something was wrong. The way her tattoos on clients healed too fast. The way her sketches sometimes seemed to move in her peripheral vision. The way she could feel emotions bleeding off the paper when she drew, like the art was absorbing pieces of the people she worked on. It was very real. The pale side of his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You signed a demonic contract. Traded your soul for the ability to create art that captures essence, that traps emotion, that bleeds life into dead matter. Her knees wanted to buckle. She locked them. You're insane. And you've been living on borrowed time for 13 years. The red eye flared brighter. The contract comes due on your 30th birthday, 3 months from now, and I'm here to collect. The world tilted. Mara grabbed the counter, nails digging into the scarred wood. 30. She'd be 30 in March. 3 months. 90 days. Who are you? The question came out as a whisper. Kale. He said it like a confession, like an apology. I'm Nephilim, half angel, half demon, and I'm bound to fulfill the terms of your contract. When your birthday comes, I take your soul to the one who holds your debt. Something shattered inside her chest, not her heart. She'd sealed that thing in ice years ago, but the fragile hope she'd been carrying without realizing it. The fantasy that one day, maybe, she'd save enough money. Adopt. Build something that mattered. There has to be a way out. Her voice was raw now, stripped of the armor she wore like a second skin. Contracts can be broken. Loopholes exist. The silver eye softened. Just for a moment. Just enough for her to see something that looked like genuine pain. There's one way. Only one. She waited, heart hammering, skin too tight. The tattoo gun still buzzing faintly on the counter, forgotten. If I father a child with you, the contract transfers. The debt gets paid through bloodline instead of soul. The child becomes the collateral. The air left her lungs in a rush. You want me to have your baby to save my soul? No. And there was something broken in how he said it, both voices cracking in tandem. I don't want that at all. Because any child born from this, born from a Nephilim and a contracted human, would be born damned. Half demon by blood, hunted by angels, cursed from the first breath. Mara's laugh was bitter, sharp enough to draw blood. Then we're both screwed. Because I can't have children. Endometriosis destroyed my uterus years ago. So I guess joke's on both of us. Something shifted in his expression. The pale side, the angelic side, suddenly looked stricken. The dark side looked hungry, like he'd just been presented with a puzzle he couldn't resist solving. What if I could change that? He said slowly, and the air around them started to hum with energy that made her teeth ache. What if I could give you what you've always wanted, and save you in the process? How? His hand moved to his chest, pressing against the point where silver markings met living shadows. I can build you a womb, temporary, using pieces of both my natures, angel and demon, light and dark. It would last long enough for conception, gestation, birth. But the cost would be mine, and the child would be damned, she finished. Her voice was hollow. You're asking me to bring a baby into the world just to suffer, to be hunted, to pay for my teenage stupidity with her entire existence. Yes, he didn't flinch from it, didn't try to soften the horror of what he was offering. That's exactly what I'm asking. Your soul or your daughter's life. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mara looked down at her hands, scarred from years of needlework, stained with ink that never fully washed out. These hands had created art on hundreds of bodies, had poured beauty into skin, had tried, desperately, to fill the void inside her with something meaningful. And now they were shaking. Get out, she whispered. Kale didn't move, just stood there, this impossible creature split down the middle, watching her with eyes that held too much knowledge, too much pain, too much understanding of what he was asking her to choose. You have 3 months, he said quietly. I'll come back. And Mara? His hand reached out, not quite touching her, but close enough she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Then he was gone. Not walking. Out. Just dissipating like smoke, leaving behind only the faint smell of ozone and something sweeter. Cinnamon, maybe. Or burning sugar. Mara stood alone in her studio, surrounded by flash art on the walls and the hum of fluorescent lights, and felt the weight of 13 years of borrowed time finally settling on her shoulders. 3 months, 90 days, and a choice that would destroy her no matter what she picked. Mara didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. She sat on the fire escape. Outside her apartment window, legs dangling 3 stories above the cracked pavement, and watched the city bleed from midnight into dawn. The cigarette between her fingers had gone out 20 minutes ago, but she kept it there anyway, ash collecting on her torn jeans like gray snow. Her phone buzzed for the 14th time. Probably her only real friend, Sage, wondering why she'd canceled their Thursday morning coffee. Mara ignored it. How do you explain to someone that you'd just learned your soul was collateral on a demonic loan you'd taken out as a grieving teenager? That you had 3 months before something with a split face and fire in its eyes dragged you to hell? You didn't. You sat on a fire escape and tried not to think about the way his touch had burned, the way both his voices had cracked when he'd said sorry. The sun crept over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rust and gold, and Mara finally climbed back inside. Her studio apartment was exactly what you'd expect. From someone who spent every spare dollar on tattoo equipment and art supplies. Futon on the floor, milk crates for bookshelves, walls covered in sketches she'd never shown anyone, a mini fridge that hummed too loud, and a hot plate that only worked if you hit it at the right angle. Home, if you could call it that. She made instant coffee, black and bitter enough to strip paint, and stared at the sketchbook lying open on her makeshift desk. Last night's drawing stared back at her. A phoenix, half-formed, rising from ashes that looked too much like shadows. She'd drawn it before Cale appeared, before she knew his name, before everything tilted sideways. Her hand moved without conscious thought, grabbing a charcoal pencil, and before she could stop herself, she was drawing him. The line down the middle of his face, the silver markings that looked like frozen lightning, the tattoos that moved like living smoke, those eyes, one winter pale, one ember red. The charcoal snapped in her. Grip. She was still staring at the ruined drawing when someone knocked on her door. 3 sharp raps that made her pulse spike. But when she checked the peephole, it wasn't Kyle. It was Mrs. Chen from downstairs, holding a casserole dish and wearing that expression that meant she was about to meddle. Mara considered not answering, but Mrs. Chen had a key and wasn't afraid to use it. "You look terrible," the older woman announced the second Mara cracked the door. She pushed inside without invitation, setting the casserole on the counter. "When did you last eat real food? And don't tell me coffee counts." "I'm fine." The lie tasted like ash. Mrs. Chen snorted, a sound that clearly said she thought Mara was full of it. "Your mother, God rest her soul, would be ashamed if she saw you living like this. When are you going to find a nice boy? Settle down?" Something sharp twisted in Mara's chest. Her mother, dead 13 years now, along with her father. Car crash, the police had said. But Mara had seen the way the wreckage looked. Like something had torn through metal with claws, not like any accident she'd ever heard of. "I'm not interested in settling down," Mara said, harder than she meant to. "And I can take care of myself." "Can you?" Mrs. Chen's eyes were too knowing, too sharp. "Because you've been carrying something heavy lately. I can see it, the way you move, like the weight might crush you if you stop for even a second." Mara's throat closed. She wanted to laugh, wanted to scream, wanted to grab this kind woman by the shoulders and ask if she knew anything about demons, about contracts signed in blood, about the price of grief. Instead, she just said, "I'm managing." Mrs. Chen sighed, patted her cheek with a weathered hand, and left. The casserole sat on the counter, still warm. Mara didn't touch it. She went to work instead. Down to her studio, unlocking the metal gate she pulled over the door every night, flipping the sign to open even though she had no appointments until 2. The familiar space should have calmed her. The smell of antiseptic and ink. The buzz of the refrigerator where she kept her pigments. The flash art covering every available surface. Dragons and roses and geometric patterns that meant nothing and everything. But all she could see was Cale standing in that corner where the shadows had been too thick. She was reorganizing her needles for the 3rd time when the bell chimed. Mara looked up, expecting a walk-in. Got a heart attack instead. He stood in her doorway, looking more human in daylight, but no less wrong. He'd covered his face somehow, made it look normal, singular. But she could still see the truth beneath, like a filter that didn't quite fit. And his eyes, both of them now a muddy hazel that was neither pale nor red, watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You can't be here." Her voice came out strangled. "It's broad daylight. People will see. They see what I want them to. See." He stepped inside, and the door swung shut behind him with a click that sounded too final. "But you see me, really see me, because of the contract, because your soul is already marked." Mara's hand moved to the pepper spray under the counter again. Stopped. What good would it do against something that could unmake reality with a thought? I'm not here to hurt you. His voice was different in daylight, singular, softer, like he was only letting one half speak. I'm here because you need to. Understand what you're facing. The one who holds your contract, he's not patient, and he's not kind. Who is he? The question burst out before she could stop it. Kale's jaw tightened. Even through the glamour, she could see tension radiating from him. His name is Asmodeus, Demon Lord, collector of artists and creators. He's been doing this for centuries. Finds talented humans, offers them power in exchange for their souls, waits for the bill to come due. Why? Mara's hands were shaking. Again. She shoved them in her pockets. Why me? I'm nobody. Just a tattoo artist in a shitty neighborhood. You're not nobody. And the way he said it, with something that sounded dangerously close to reverence, made her chest tight. Your art traps emotion, holds pieces of people's souls. That's rare, powerful. Asmodeus collects power the way some people collect stamps. The studio suddenly felt too small, too hot, like the walls were closing in. And you work for him. I'm bound to him. The distinction seemed important. There's a difference. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. The words came out bitter. I made mine at 16. You made yours whenever you decided to sell yourself to a demon. His glamour flickered. For just a second, she saw his real face. Saw rage flash in the red eye, pain in the pale one. I was born into this. Born damned. Half my blood is angelic, the other half demonic, and both sides want me dead for existing. I didn't choose servitude. I chose survival. The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Mara forced herself to breathe, to think. You said there was a way out. The child. How would that even work? You said I can't have kids. I can change that. He moved closer, not threatening, just intense. I have power from both bloodlines. Angel can create. Demon can rebuild. Together they can make what's broken whole. Temporarily. How temporarily? Her voice was barely a whisper now. Long enough. 9 months. Maybe 10. Then your body would revert. But the child would be born. Would exist. Would carry the debt instead of you. Mara's laugh was hollow. So I condemn a baby to hell to save myself. That's the choice. No. Kale's hand reached out, stopped inches from her face. She could feel heat radiating from his palm. The child would be Nephilim, like me. Hunted, yes. Damned, maybe. But alive. With choices. With a chance. What kind of chance? Mara demanded. You said it yourself. Both sides want you. Dead. What kind of life is that for a kid? A hard one. He didn't look away. Didn't sugarcoat it. But a life. Which is more than you'll have if you let Asmodeus collect. She wanted to hit him. Wanted to scream. Wanted to grab this impossible creature by his split nature and demand to know why the universe was so goddamn cruel. Instead, she asked the question that had been burning in her chest since last night. Why do you care? If you're just here to collect, why offer me an out at all? Something shifted in his expression. The glamour slipped again, and for a heartbeat, she saw both sides of him clearly. Saw war happening behind his eyes. Saw the angel fighting the demon, fighting each other for control. Because I've taken 73 souls to Asmodeus over the last century, he said quietly, and every single one of them screamed my name as they burned. I'm tired, Mara. I'm so goddamn tired of being the thing that destroys people. And you're different. How? The word came out raw. Because you see me. Really see me. Not just the monster. Not just the tool. You look at me like I'm a person who made bad choices, not a thing that exists to serve evil. His voice cracked on the last word. And I don't want to take you. Don't want to add your screams to the ones that wake me every morning. So I'm offering you the only way out I know. even though it makes me the monster anyway. Mara's chest hurt. Physically hurt. Like something was crushing her ribs from the inside. This thing, this Nephilim with his split face and burning eyes, was offering her an impossible choice wrapped in a truth that tasted like poison. Save herself by creating life specifically to suffer, or die knowing she chose martyrdom over motherhood. "I need time," she whispered. "You have 3 months." Kale stepped back, and the distance felt like loss. "But Asmodeus will start visiting your dreams soon, showing you what's waiting. He likes to break people before he collects them. Makes the souls taste sweeter." Terror, cold and sharp, lanced through her. "How do I stop that?" "You can't." His glamour snapped back into place, making him look almost human again. "Almost. But I can help, if you let me." "Why would you do that?" He was at the door now, hand on the handle, and when he looked back at her, there was something devastatingly sad in his manufactured hazel eyes. "Because maybe if I save one person, just one, I can remember what it felt like to be something other." Then damned. Then he was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of ozone and cinnamon, and Mara alone with a choice that would break her no matter what she decided. The nightmares started 3 days later. Mara woke up screaming, sheets soaked with sweat that smelled like sulfur. In the dream, she'd been standing in a room made of mirrors, watching herself age in reverse. 30 years old, 29, 28. The reflection kept getting younger until she was 16 again, blood dripping. From her palm onto that damned contract, while a voice that sounded like grinding glass whispered, "Mine. You've always been mine." She didn't go back to sleep. Didn't even try. Just sat on her futon with her knees pulled to her chest, counting the hours until sunrise like a lifeline. By the 4th night, she'd stopped pretending sleep was an option. The dreams got worse, more vivid. In one, she watched her own funeral, saw herself in the casket, but her body was wrong. Skin gray, eyes hollow. And everyone who looked at her corpse recoiled, like they could see something crawling beneath her dead flesh. In another, she was in her studio, tattooing a client. But every line she drew bled black smoke that formed into screaming faces. Her clients' faces, all of them, trapped forever in the art she'd created. "Your work will live eternally," that grinding voice purred. "Just like you, in my collection." She woke up tasting blood, had bitten through her lip without realizing. On the 5th night, Mara broke down and called the number Kyle had left on a business card that appeared in her jacket pocket. She didn't remember him putting it there. The card was black, blank, except for 10 digits in silver ink that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. He answered on the first ring. "How bad?" Not, "Hello." Not, "Who is this?" Just immediate understanding that made something in her chest crack open. "I can't sleep." Her voice was wrecked, raw. "Every time I close my eyes, he's there, showing me things, horrible things. I'm coming over. It's 2 a.m. I know what time it is." The line went dead. He appeared 15 minutes later, not at her door but on her fire escape, tapping on the window like some kind of supernatural vampire waiting for an invitation. Mara stared at him through the glass. He'd dropped the glamour. His real face stared back at her, split down the middle, silver and shadow, winter and ember. She should have been terrified. Should have kept the window locked. She opened it. Kale climbed inside with a grace that shouldn't have been possible for someone his size. He was tall, maybe 6'3", all lean muscle and controlled power. In her tiny apartment, he looked even more impossible. Too big, too otherworldly, too present. "You look like hell," he said. And there was no judgment in it, just observation. "Funny. That's where I've been visiting every night." Mara wrapped her arms around herself. She was wearing an abbas, oversized band shirt and sleep shorts, and suddenly felt too exposed, Too vulnerable. He's in my head. Asmodeus. I can feel him digging around in there like he's trying on my memories for size. Cale's jaw tightened. The red eye flared brighter. He's accelerating the process. Normally he waits until the last month. He must want you badly. Why? The question came out as a plea. What makes me so special? Your art doesn't just trap emotion. It traps pieces of souls. Cale moved to her desk, picked up one of her sketchbooks. His fingers traced the drawing of a woman crying, and Mara swore she saw the charcoal tears actually fall. Most of Asmodeus's artists create beautiful things. But you create things that breathe, that hurt, that remember. You're a soul catcher, Mara. Rare as hell. Literally. She wanted to vomit. I never meant to. I just wanted to make art that mattered. It does. He set the sketchbook down carefully. That's the problem. The silence stretched between them, heavy and strange. Mara found herself studying him in the dim light of her apartment. The way the silver markings on his pale side seemed to pulse with their own luminescence. The way the tattoos on his dark side writhed like they were trying to escape his skin. The hard line of his jaw. The way he held himself, like he was constantly braced for attack. Can you really stop the dreams? She asked finally. Not stop, but I can dilute them, make them less potent. He hesitated, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. But it requires proximity, physical proximity. Understanding hit her like cold water. You want to stay here, while I sleep. I want to create a buffer between you and Asmodeus. My presence confuses the connection, makes it harder for him to dig deep. His voice was careful, measured. But I understand if that's too much. If you don't trust me enough. Mara laughed, sharp and bitter. Trust? I signed a demon contract at 16 because some woman told me it would make my art eternal. I think my trust gauge is pretty busted. Then let me earn it. He said it so simply, so directly, like it was just a fact. Let me prove I'm not here to hurt you. She should have said no, should have kicked him out, should have done literally anything other than gesture to the futon and say, fine, but you stay on top of the covers, and if you try anything, I have a baseball bat under the bed. Something that might have been a smile flickered across the pale side of his mouth. Noted. They settled into the strangest sleeping arrangement Mara had ever experienced. She took her usual side, closest to the wall, and Cale stretched out on top of the blanket, careful to keep distance between them. He was too tall for the futon. His feet hung off the edge, but he didn't complain. Does it hurt? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Being split like that, does it physically hurt? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, yes, every second of every day, the angel side wants to ascend, shed the darkness. The demon side wants to sink, devour the light. And I'm stuck in the middle, holding both back. It's like being slowly torn in half by horses pulling in opposite directions. Except it never ends. Her chest ached. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's what I am. He turned his head to look at her, and in the darkness both his eyes glowed softly. Sleep, Mara. I'll keep watch. She didn't think it would work. But somehow, with him there, the air in her apartment felt different, cleaner, like his presence was pushing back against something she hadn't even realized was pressing in. Mara closed her eyes, and for the first time in 5 days, she slept without screaming. She woke up to gray morning light filtering through her window and the smell of coffee. Real coffee, not the instant garbage she usually made. Mara sat up, disoriented, and found Cale standing at her hot plate, somehow coaxing her broken piece of junk into functioning. You didn't have to do that, she said, voice still rough with sleep. You didn't have to let me stay. He poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. Consider it payment for the futon, which, for the record, is the most uncomfortable sleeping surface I've encountered in a century. Despite everything, despite the weight crushing her chest and the impossible choice looming, Mara smiled. Actually smiled. Welcome to being poor. He handed her a mug, and their fingers brushed. The contact sent heat racing up her arm, but different from the burning touch that first night. This was warmth, almost gentle. She pulled back quickly, wrapping both hands around the mug like a shield. The dreams, she started. They were better, quieter. I still had them, but it was like watching through frosted glass instead of being there. It'll get worse the closer we get to your birthday. Kale leaned against her counter, and she tried not to notice how his borrowed t-shirt, clearly something he'd manifested because he definitely hadn't been wearing it last night, pulled across his shoulders. Asmodeus will push harder. He likes the hunt. Then I need to decide. The words tasted like ash. About the baby. About everything. His expression shuddered, both sides of his face going carefully blank. Yes. Walk me through it, all of it. No sugarcoating. Mara set her mug down. If I say yes, if I let you do whatever supernatural horror show it takes, to make me able to carry a child, what happens? Step by step. Kale was silent for a long moment, war visibly happening behind his eyes. The silver markings pulsed. The dark tattoos writhed. Finally he spoke. I'd need to perform a ritual. It requires both my natures working in tandem. The angel side to create, the demon side to reshape. I'd essentially be building you a temporary womb using pieces of my own essence. It would be functional, biological, real. And the cost to you? Every time. I use both natures together, I fragment. Pieces of my soul splinter off. Too much, and I stop being a person, become just a weapon, just a tool. His voice was flat, factual. This particular working would take approximately 30% of what's left of me. Horror crawled up Mara's spine. You'd lose part of yourself. Permanently. Yes. Why would you do that? The question came out strangled. Why sacrifice pieces of your soul for someone you barely know? He looked at her then, really. Looked at her, and she saw something raw and desperate in his mismatched eyes. Because in 100 years of collecting souls, you're the first person who asked me if it hurt. The first person who looked at me like I was worth saving too. And maybe if I save you, I can remember what it felt like to be something other than a monster. The words hung between them like a confession, like a prayer, like a plea for absolution neither of them could give. Mara's hands trembled. And after the baby is born, what happens to her? She'd be Nephilim, hunted by angels for being demonic, hunted by demons for being angelic. But she'd be alive, Mara. She'd have choices. She'd have chances I never got. His voice cracked. And I'd protect her, with everything I have left. I swear it. Tears burned behind Mara's eyes. She'd spent 13 years building walls, 13 years refusing to need anyone, 13 years being the woman who didn't break. She was breaking now. I need more time, she whispered. Then take it. Kale pushed off the counter. But I'm not leaving you alone. Not while Asmodeus is digging in your dreams. I'll stay close, keep him at bay, give you space to think. He was at her window again, climbing out onto the fire escape, when she called out, Kyle? He paused, half in, half out, morning light catching the silver side of his face and making him look almost angelic. Thank you. For the coffee. For the sleep. For not being the monster everyone told you to be. Something soft flickered across his features. Almost a smile. Almost hope. Get some rest, Mara. Real rest. You'll need it for what's coming. Then he was gone, dissolving into shadows, leaving only the lingering scent of ozone and something sweeter. And Mara sat alone in her apartment, staring at 2 empty coffee mugs, trying to figure out how to choose between damnation and motherhood. Cale started showing up every night after that. Never announced, never asked permission, just appeared on her. Fire escape around 10 p.m., like some kind of supernatural routine, tapping on the window with knuckles that left frost or scorch marks depending on which hand he used. Mara stopped pretending she minded. By the second week, they'd fallen into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to domestic. He'd bring actual food, real meals from restaurants she couldn't afford, claiming he didn't eat anyway, so it wasn't a waste. She'd work on sketches while he sat in her salvaged armchair, reading books he pulled from thin air, literal thin air. Pages filled with languages that hurt to look at directly. They didn't talk about the choice. Didn't mention the ticking clock, or the demon lord waiting in the shadows, or the impossible decision crushing her chest a little more each day. Instead, they talked about everything else. "What's it like?" Mara asked one night, charcoal moving across paper as she drew without really seeing. "Being immortal, watching the world change while you stay the same." Cal looked up from whatever ancient text he was studying, something with symbols that writhed on the page. "Lonely. Imagine everyone you meet is already dead. You're just waiting for time to catch up. Every connection is temporary. Every moment borrowed. You learn to stop caring after the first few decades. But you still do." She glanced at him. "Care, I can tell." His jaw tightened. The silver markings on his pale side pulsed brighter. "That's the problem. The angel half won't let me stop. Keeps insisting every soul matters. Every life has value. Meanwhile, the demon half laughs and reminds me I'm just a tool for collecting those same souls. It's exhausting." Mara set down her charcoal. "Can I ask you something personal? More personal than discussing my fragmented soul?" But there was no bite in it. Almost sounded like humor. "Have you ever loved anyone?" The question slipped out quieter than she meant. "In 100 years, has there ever been someone who made the loneliness bearable?" Something shifted in his expression. Pain, sharp and immediate, flickering across both sides of his face. "Once, a long time ago. She was human, an artist actually, painter. She saw me like you do, like I was a person instead of a thing." Mara's chest tightened. "What happened?" "Asmodeus found out, used her as leverage to ensure my obedience, gave me a choice, serve him willingly or watch her suffer for eternity." His voice had gone flat, empty. "I chose service. He killed her. Anyway, said she'd already served her purpose." The charcoal snapped in Mara's grip. "That's why you're helping me. You're trying to save her through me." "No." Cale stood abruptly, the air around him crackling with barely contained energy. The temperature in her apartment plummeted on his left side, spiked on his right. "You're not her. You're nothing like her. She was soft, gentle. You're all sharp edges and survival instincts. She painted beauty. You trap pain. Don't compare yourself to her." "Then why?" Mara stood too, facing him across her tiny apartment. "Why risk everything for me?" He crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. Suddenly he was there, close enough she could feel heat and cold radiating from him in waves, close enough to see the way his eyes flickered between pale and red, fighting for dominance. "Because when you look at me, you see a person making terrible choices, not a monster that can't choose anything else. Because you asked if it hurt and actually cared. About the answer. Because you're fighting for your life with everything you have, and I've forgotten what that looks like." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "Because maybe, just maybe, if I save you, I can prove I'm still capable of doing one good thing before this existence breaks me completely." They were close enough now that Mara could see the fine silver lines webbing across his pale side, like cracks in porcelain. Could see the way shadows moved beneath the skin of his dark side. Alive. And hungry. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard it hurt. "You already are good," she whispered. "You're just too broken to see it." Something in him cracked. She saw it happen. saw the careful control he maintained every second splinter apart. His hand came up, cupping her face, and the contact was fire and ice and electricity all at once. The pale side of his palm was cool as marble. The dark side burned like fever. "Don't," he breathed. "Don't make me into something I'm not. Don't romanticize the monster. I'm not." Mara's hand covered his, holding it against her cheek even though it hurt. Even though the conflicting temperatures made her skin feel like it might tear apart. "I'm just seeing what's actually there." For a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. Saw the way his eyes dropped to her mouth. Saw the war happening behind his expression, angel and demon both wanting and rejecting in equal measure. Then he pulled away, the loss of contact leaving her skin. Aching. "I should go." His voice was wrecked. "Before I do something we'll both regret." "Cale, wait." But he was already at the window, halfway through, and the look he threw back at her was devastating. 2 months, Mara. You have 2 months to decide. And I need you to understand something. If you choose the child, if you let me do this, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me, connected. You'll feel pieces of me inside you, literally. And it won't be gentle. It won't be easy. And when the baby is born, when you look at her and see my eyes looking back, you'll remember that you chose this, that I'm the reason she exists and the reason she'll suffer. Stop. Mara's voice cracked. Stop making yourself the villain. I am the villain. He said it with such certainty, such bone-deep conviction, that it made her chest ache. I've always been the villain. I'm just offering you a chance to survive your story. But don't mistake that for heroism. Then he was gone, leaving frost and scorch marks on her windowsill, and Mara alone with the phantom feeling of his touch burning cold against her skin. She didn't sleep that night, just stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about the way her body had responded to his proximity, the way something in her chest had reached toward something in his, the way she was starting to crave his presence like oxygen. This was bad. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of attachment that got people killed. But when he showed up, the next night, she let him in anyway. They didn't talk about what had almost happened, didn't acknowledge the shift in the air between them, just fell back into their routine like nothing had changed, even though everything had. Cale brought Thai food. Mara pretended to focus on a commission sketch. The silence was comfortable until it wasn't. Tell me about your parents, Cale said suddenly. The real story, not the car crash. Mara's hand stilled on the paper. How did you know? Because I know what supernatural kill sites look like. And I know Asmodeus's signature work. He doesn't just collect souls. He eliminates obstacles. Your parents knew something. Or had something. Or were protecting you from something. The words she'd been holding for 13 years spilled out. They were trying to break the contract. I found letters after they died. My mom had been researching demon packs, looking for loopholes. She'd contacted some kind of hunter network, people who fought supernatural. Threats. The night they died, they were supposed to meet with someone who claimed they could help. And instead, they met with Asmodeus. Cale's voice was dark, dangerous. He probably made it look like an accident to avoid drawing attention. But it was an execution. Tears burned behind Mara's eyes. She hadn't cried over her parents' death in years, had locked that grief in a box and buried it deep. They died trying to save me from a contract I didn't even remember signing. How do I live with that? By surviving. Cale moved closer, not touching, but present. Solid. By making their sacrifice mean something. By choosing life, whatever form that takes. Even if it means damning a child? Even then. His voice softened. Because your parents would rather you live with guilt than die with martyrdom. Trust me. I've watched enough parents sacrifice everything for their children. They always choose the same thing. Your life. No matter the cost. Mara looked up at him. This impossible creature split down the middle and saw something she'd been trying not to see. He wasn't just helping her out of guilt or redemption or some noble desire to do one good thing. He was helping her because somewhere along the way, she'd started to matter to him. Actually, matter. And that was terrifying. Because in 2 months, she'd have to make a choice that would destroy one of them. Maybe both. "Stay tonight," she said. Not a question. A request. "Please." He nodded, something soft and sad, crossing his features. "I wasn't planning on leaving." They settled onto the futon like they had every night for 2 weeks. But this time, when Mara's hand accidentally brushed his, she didn't pull away. And when his fingers curled around hers, careful and tentative and achingly gentle, she held on. They fell asleep like that. Connected. 2 broken people holding on to each other in the dark, pretending they weren't both drowning. And for the first time in 13 years, Mara dreamed of something other than death. She dreamed of a child with mismatched eyes and a smile that held both light and shadow. Dreamed of Cale holding a baby girl, looking at her like she was the only thing in the universe that mattered. She woke up with tears on her face and her hand still in his, and knew with bone-deep certainty that she'd already made her choice. She just hadn't admitted it yet. Mara told him on a Tuesday night, 6 weeks before her 30th birthday, while rain hammered against her. Windows and the city drowned in gray. They were sitting on her fire escape despite the weather, because Cale didn't seem to feel temperature the way normal people did, and Mara needed the cold rain to keep her focused, to keep her from losing her nerve. "I'll do it," she said, voice barely audible over the storm. The ritual, the baby, all of it. Cale went completely still. Not the stillness of a person holding their breath, the stillness of something ancient and powerful forcing itself into absolute control. Rain streamed down his face, splitting along the line that divided him, running silver on one side, dark as oil on the other. "You need to be certain." His voice was careful, too careful. "Once we start this, there's no stopping, no changing your mind halfway through. You need to understand what you're agreeing to." "I understand." Mara wrapped her arms around herself. The rain had soaked through her jacket, plastered her hair to her skull, but she couldn't make herself move. "I'm choosing to create life, instead of surrendering to death. I'm choosing to give a child a chance, even if that chance is hard, even if she suffers, because suffering while alive is still better than not existing at all." "Is it?" The question came from his demon side, that rougher voice full of ancient bitterness. "You're asking me to fragment my soul to build you a womb. You're asking me to father a child who'll be hunted from her first breath. You're asking me to watch another person He stopped, swallowed hard. "Another person I care about risk everything." The admission hung between them, raw and bleeding. "I know what I'm asking." Mara turned to face him fully. "And I know what it costs you. But Cale, I can't die knowing I had a choice and picked martyrdom. My parents died trying to save me. The least I can do is try to save myself." He studied her for a long moment. Rain running down his split face, eyes flickering between pale and red like a candle struggling against wind. Then he reached out, cupped her face with both hands, and the contrast of temperatures made her gasp. Ice on one side, fire on the other. "If we do this," he said quietly, "you need to understand the reality. The ritual will hurt. Not kill you, but hurt. My essence will feel foreign inside you, fighting itself, angel and demon trying to unmake each other while building something new. You'll feel that war every second for 9 months. I can handle pain." Her voice was stronger than she felt. "Physical pain, yes. But this is different. You'll feel pieces of me. Pieces of my memories, my emotions, my nature. The angel side will fill you with guilt for what we're doing. The demon side will make you crave destruction. You'll have dreams that aren't yours, hungers that shouldn't exist. And through it all, you'll carry a child who's half me, half you, and entirely something that should never have been created. Mara's hands covered his, holding them against her face even though it hurt. Even though the conflicting temperatures made her feel like her skin might split. Will you stay? Through all of it? Or is this just a transaction? Something cracked in his expression. I'll stay. Every day. Every nightmare. Every moment you hate me for what I've done to you. I'll stay until the end. Then I'm ready. She said it like a vow. Like a promise. Like she was signing another contract. But this time with full knowledge of the price. Cale pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. And for a heartbeat, they just breathed together in the rain. Then he pulled back, something resolute settling over his features. We do it tonight, before you can overthink, before Asmodeus realizes what we're planning. He stood, pulling her up with him. Do you have anything you need to prepare? Anyone you need to tell? Mara thought of Mrs. Chen downstairs, of Sage, her only real friend, who'd been calling and texting for weeks, of the life she'd built from scraps and survival. No, there's no one, just me. The sadness that flickered across his face told her he understood that loneliness, had lived it himself for a century. They climbed back inside. Mara's apartment suddenly felt too small, too fragile, like it couldn't possibly contain what was about to happen. Cale moved through her space with purpose, pushing furniture against the walls, clearing the center of the room. You'll need to be in the middle, he explained, and his voice had taken on a clinical quality. Professional, like he was trying to distance himself from what he was about to do. The ritual requires a circle, blood and ash, angelic script and demonic seals. It's old magic. Older than Christianity, older than most civilizations. Mara watched him work, pulling materials from nothing. A knife that gleamed with its own light. Ash that smelled like burned feathers and sulfur. Chalk in colors that didn't exist in nature. Silver that moved like mercury, and black that absorbed light completely. Where did you learn this? She asked, as he began drawing on her floor. Symbols that made her eyes water if she looked at them too long. From the one who created me. My father. His hand stilled for just a second. He was an angel who fell in love with a human woman. Demons found them, tortured him for the knowledge of how to create Nephilim, then killed them both. But not before he taught me everything he knew, including this. The circle took an hour to complete. Intricate, beautiful, terrible. Silver script flowed into black seals, creating patterns that seemed to breathe, to pulse with their own rhythm. When it was finished, Kyle stood in the center and held out his hand. Last chance to walk away, he said. Mara took his hand, stepped into the circle. I'm not walking away. He positioned her in the exact center, then stepped back to the edge. You'll need to remove your shirt. I need access to your abdomen. She hesitated for just a second, then pulled off her soaked jacket and shirt, standing there in just her bra and jeans. The air was cold. Her skin broke out in goosebumps. But Cale's eyes never left her face, never dropped, never took advantage. This is going to hurt, he warned one last time. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to curse me, curse me. But don't move. No matter what, don't break the circle. I won't. She said it like a promise. Cale began to chant. The words were old, ancient, languages that predated human speech, sounds that resonated in her bones. The circle began to glow, silver and black light rising from the symbols, wrapping around them like living things. Then he changed. Truly changed. The glamour he usually wore, the careful control, all of it shattered. His wings manifested, massive and impossible. The left wing pure white, feathers that glowed like starlight. The right wing black membrane stretched over bone, dripping shadows that hissed when they hit the floor. He was terrifying. He was beautiful. He was both and neither. And something in between that made her chest ache. Cale's hands came up, palms facing her, and light began to pool in his left hand, while darkness gathered in his right. The two energies fought each other, sparking and snarling, but he held them steady through sheer force of will. "Forgive me," he whispered. Then he pressed both hands to her abdomen. Pain exploded through Mara's body. Not physical pain, though there was that too. A burning cold sensation like being frozen, and set on fire simultaneously, but deeper, soul deep. She felt his essence pouring into her, angel and demon fighting a war inside her flesh, tearing at each other while trying to build. She felt his memories crash through her mind. A woman with kind eyes being tortured. A child version of him watching his parents die. 73 souls screaming his name as they burned. Loneliness that stretched across decades. Guilt that never faded. Love that he'd tried to bury and failed. She felt his nature, splitting inside her. The angel side filling her with overwhelming compassion, making her want to weep for every suffering thing in the universe. The demon side filling her with hunger, with rage, with the desire to burn the world down just to feel something other than pain. And through it all, she felt something taking shape. Something new. A space where there had been scar tissue and damage. A womb. Temporary. Fragile. But real. Mara screamed. Couldn't help it. The sound ripped from her throat. Raw and animal. And Cale's face twisted with agony, like her pain was his pain, reflected and amplified. "Almost done," he gritted out. "Hold on. Just hold on." The light and darkness intensified, becoming blinding, and then suddenly collapsed inward, slamming into her with force that knocked the air from her lungs. She felt something settle inside her, something that pulsed with its own rhythm, something alive. Kyle stumbled back, and Mara saw what it had cost him. His wings were flickering, unstable. The silver markings on his pale side had spread, covering more of his face, his neck, like cracks in a breaking statue. The tattoos on his dark side writhed more violently, like they were trying to escape his skin. He'd fragmented. She could see it, could feel it through some new connection that hadn't existed before. "It's done," he said, voice wrecked. "You can conceive now. The womb will hold for approximately 10 months. After that, your body will revert." Mara's hand moved to her abdomen. She couldn't feel anything different physically, but she knew with absolute certainty that something fundamental had changed, that she was no longer the woman who'd walked into this circle. "What happens now?" Her voice came out hoarse. Cale's eyes met hers, and she saw exhaustion there, and something else, something that looked dangerously close to hope. "Now we wait, for conception, for the child, for whatever comes after. How long will conception take?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, barely audible, "It's already happening. The ritual itself initiates it. My essence, it's already..." He stopped, swallowed. "You're already pregnant, Mara, with my child." The words hit her like a physical blow. She looked down at her stomach, at the place where Kyle had pressed his hands, and felt something flutter. Not movement, not yet, but potential. Life waiting to unfold. "I'm pregnant." She said it out loud, testing the words. "I'm going to have a baby." "Yes." Kyle's wings dissolved, the glamour snapping back over his features. But she could still see the damage, could see how much this had cost him. And in 9 months, Asmodeus will come for payment. But instead of your soul, he'll find a child. A Nephilim child, born of contract and sacrifice. Will it be enough? The question came out small, afraid. Will he accept her in my place? Yes. Demon contracts are specific. They require payment, but they don't specify form. A soul born of your bloodline, generated through the contract's power, will satisfy the terms. He swayed slightly, exhausted. You'll be free, and she'll be hunted, Mara finished, for the rest of her life. Yes, he didn't try to soften it, but alive, which is more than you would have been. They stood there in the ruined circle, two broken people who'd just created life from death, from desperation, from the ashes of impossible choices. And Mara felt it, that flutter again, stronger now, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Her daughter, growing inside her, real and impossible and terrifying. And Cale, watching her with eyes that held a century of regret and something new, something that looked like wonder. The pregnancy changed everything. Mara felt it immediately, that foreign presence inside her that pulsed with dual nature. During the day, she'd be overcome with sudden waves of compassion so intense, she'd cry watching strangers help each other on the street. At night, she'd wake up craving destruction, wanting to burn something, break something, hurt something, just to feel powerful. Cale's essence, angel and demon, fighting their eternal war inside her body. He stayed, moved into her apartment without asking, sleeping on the futon even though she told him he could take the bed. He was there every morning when nausea hit, holding her hair back while she vomited, his cool hand on her neck the only thing that helped. He was there every night when the demon side of the baby's nature made her too restless to sleep, talking in that double-layered voice until the darkness inside her settled. "Tell me about her," Mara said one evening, 3 weeks into the pregnancy. She was curled on the futon, hand on her still flat stomach, while Cale sketched in one of her notebooks. He'd started drawing lately, landscapes that didn't exist, cities that had fallen millennia ago. The woman you loved, the painter, his charcoal stilled on the paper. Why? Because I need to know I'm not just a replacement. That this isn't just you trying to save her ghost through me. Cale set down the notebook, looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Her name was Eloise. She lived in Paris in 1897. She painted scenes of ordinary life, markets, children playing, couples in love, things I'd forgotten could be beautiful. His voice was soft, distant. She knew what I was, didn't care. Said everyone deserved a chance at redemption, even monsters. What was she like? Mara's throat was tight. Kind, gentle, everything I wasn't. She believed in hope. He paused. You're nothing like her. You're hard where she was soft, cynical where she was optimistic. You fight where she would have forgiven. And that's why this isn't about replacing her. Because you're not her. You're you. Sharp and angry, and so goddamn determined to survive that you'll damn your own child to do it. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like honesty. Like seeing, do you hate me for it? The question came, out smaller than she meant. For choosing this? For asking you to fragment yourself? Cale crossed the space between them, knelt in front of the futon so they were eye level. I could never hate you. You're doing what any creature does when backed into a corner. You're surviving, and I'm choosing to help you. That's not your burden to carry. His hand moved to her stomach, hovering just above, not quite touching. Can you feel her yet? Sometimes. Little flutters, like butterflies made of light and shadow. Mara covered his hand with hers, pressing his palm flat against her abdomen. She's strong. I can tell. She's fighting already, trying to figure out how to exist when half of her wants to ascend and half wants to burn. Like her father. Something sad flickered across his face. I'm sorry for passing this curse to her, for making her something that shouldn't exist. Stop. Mara's grip tightened. She's not a curse. She's a choice. Our choice. And maybe being caught between light and dark isn't damnation. Maybe it's balance. Before Cale could respond, The temperature in the apartment plummeted. Not his doing. Something else. Something that made the air taste like copper and rot. He was on his feet instantly, wings manifesting, white and black spreading wide as he positioned himself between Mara and the corner of the room, where shadows were pooling too thick. "He's here," Kyle growled, both voices speaking in unison. "Don't look at him directly. Don't speak unless spoken." 2. "And for God's sake, don't make deals." The shadows coalesced into something vaguely humanoid, tall, elegant, wearing darkness like an expensive suit. When he smiled, his teeth were too white, too many, too sharp. "Kale." The voice was grinding glass and silk simultaneously. "My favorite broken tool. And this must be the artist. Mara Chen. I've been watching you through your dreams. You have such delicious fears." Asmodeus, the demon lord, the thing that owned her contract. Mara forced herself not to shrink back, not to show fear. "What do you want?" "Direct. I like that." He circled them slowly, never taking his eyes off her stomach. "I'm here to inform you that I'm aware of your little scheme. The pregnancy. The substitution. Did you really think you could hide it from me?" Kale's wings spread wider, blocking Asmodeus's view of Mara. "The contract states payment of a soul from her bloodline. The child satisfies that requirement." "Technically, yes." Asmodeus's smile widened. "But I'm feeling generous. I'll give you both a choice. You can proceed with this plan, birth the Nephilim child, and I'll accept her as payment. She'll grow up hunted, suffering, paying for her mother's sins her entire short, brutal life. Or," Mara's voice was steady despite the terror clawing at her chest, "or I take you now. Quick, clean, no child suffers, no innocent pays the price. Just you, accepting the consequences of your own choices." He leaned closer, and Mara could smell sulfur and something sweeter. What kind of mother damns her child to save herself? What kind of love is that? The words hit like knives, because they were the same questions that kept her awake at night, the same guilt that ate at her every time she felt the baby move. She chose life. Kale's voice was dangerous, low. For both of them, that's the most powerful kind of love that exists. "Is it?" Asmodeus turned his attention to Kale. "Tell me, broken thing, what happens when the child is born? When she looks at her mother and asks why she was created just to suffer? When she begs her father to end her pain? What will you tell her?" Kyle's jaw clenched. The silver markings on his face pulsed brighter. "I'll tell her that existence, even painful existence, is a gift. That she has choices her mother didn't. That she's loved." "Loved." Asmodeus laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "You fragmented yourself to create this child. You're barely holding yourself together. In 6 months, maybe. Less, you'll be nothing but instinct and hunger. No consciousness left, no love left. Just a weapon I can point at anything I want destroyed." Horror crawled up Mara's spine. What is he talking about? Kale didn't turn around, didn't look at her. "The fragmentation. It's progressive. He's right. I'm deteriorating faster than I expected. The ritual took more than 30%, closer to 45. By the time the baby is born, I'll be mostly gone. You knew." The accusation came out broken. "You knew this would destroy you and you did it anyway." "Yes. Simple. Final. Because your life mattered more than my consciousness. Because she deserves a chance. Because I'm already damned. At least this way, my damnation means something." Tears burned behind Mara's eyes. She pushed off the futon, moved around Kale's protective wings, and faced Asmodeus directly. "Take me instead, right now. Let her live. Let Kale keep what's left of himself. I'll go willingly." "No." Kale grabbed her arm, spinning her to face him. His eyes were wild, desperate. Don't you dare throw away what we did, what I gave up. She's alive because you chose to fight. Don't dishonor that by giving up now." "But you'll be gone." Mara's voice cracked. You'll be nothing, just a tool, and she'll grow up hunted and alone. How is that better? Because she'll exist. He cupped her face, ice and fire against her skin. Because you'll exist. Because 6 months of deterioration is worth an entire lifetime of her breathing, of her laughing, of her making choices, of her being more than either of us could ever be. Asmodeus clapped slowly, mockingly. How touching, how noble, how utterly pointless. He moved closer, and the air grew thick with malice. Here's what's going to happen. The child will be born. I will accept her as payment, and Kale will fragment completely, becoming my perfect weapon. And you, Mara, you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you bought your freedom with your daughter's suffering and your lover's soul. He's not my lover. But the words came out weak, unconvincing. Isn't he? Asmodeus's smile was cruel. You carry his essence, feel his emotions, dream his dreams. You're more bound to him than any marriage could create. And when he's gone, when there's nothing left but hunger and instinct, you'll feel that too. You'll feel him die, piece by piece. That's the real payment, artist. Not the child, not your soul, your guilt, your grief, your knowledge. That love, even broken love, isn't enough to save anyone. Then he was gone, dissolving like smoke, leaving only the lingering stench of sulfur and the weight of his words crushing the air from the room. Mara's legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if Kale hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest, his wings wrapping around them both like a shield that couldn't actually protect them from anything. I'm sorry, she sobbed into his shirt. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would cost you this much. I didn't know you'd fragment so badly. I should have chosen differently. Should have just let him take me. Stop. His voice was rough, wrecked. Listen to me. I made this choice with full knowledge. I knew the cost. I knew what would happen. And I'd do it again. Every time. In every universe. I'd choose your life over my consciousness. Why? The question came out as a wail. Why would you do that? He pulled back just enough to look at her, and she saw everything in his mismatched eyes. Every feeling he'd been trying to hide. Every truth he'd been too afraid to speak. Because somewhere between watching you fight and holding you while you slept and feeling our daughter move inside you, I fell in love with you. The words came out like a confession, like a prayer, like a plea. And love, real love, isn't about saving yourself. It's about choosing someone else's existence over your own, even when it costs everything. Especially then. Mara's heart shattered, because she felt it too. Had been feeling it for weeks, and denying it because acknowledging it made everything hurt more. I love you too. The words tasted like grief. And I hate that loving you means watching you disappear. Then don't watch. He pressed his forehead to hers. Close your eyes. Feel our daughter grow. Feel yourself heal. And when I'm gone, when there's nothing left of me but instinct, promise me you'll remember I chose this, that I wanted this, that loving you and her was worth every fragment of my soul. She couldn't promise that. Couldn't promise anything except that she'd carry his sacrifice like a wound that never healed. They held each other in the wreckage of her apartment. Two people who'd created life from death and love from damnation, and felt the countdown to the end ticking away in the space between heartbeats. 6 months, maybe less, and then Kale would be gone, and she'd be alone with a child born of impossible love and terrible choices. But for now, in this moment, they were still whole, still together, still fighting, and that would have to be enough. The fragmentation accelerated in the 7th month. Mara woke one morning to find Kyle standing at the window, staring at nothing, his wings half manifested and flickering like a dying light bulb. The silver markings had spread across his entire left side now, creeping down his neck, his arm, covering him in cracks that looked like broken porcelain. The tattoos on his right side writhed so violently. They seemed to be trying to tear free from his skin. "Kale." She pushed herself up, movement awkward with her swollen belly. The baby kicked in response to her mother's distress, a flutter that felt like lightning and shadow both. He didn't respond, didn't even blink. Terror spiked through her. She'd seen this happening gradually over the past weeks. Moments where he'd lose time, where he'd stare at nothing, trapped somewhere between angel and demon, neither side winning, both sides eating him. Alive from the inside. "Kale." She touched his arm, and the contact jolted him back. His eyes focused, but it took too long. Seconds too long. "Sorry." His voice was rougher now, the two tones less synchronized, fighting each other. I don't know where I was. How bad is it?" She kept her hand on his arm, anchoring him. "Tell me the truth." He looked down at her stomach, at the visible proof of their daughter, and something devastated flickered across his fragmenting features. "I'm losing hours now. Sometimes I come back and realize I've been standing somewhere for 6 hours straight. The angel side is trying to ascend. The demon side is trying to sink. And what's left of me is being torn apart in the middle. There has to be a way to stop it." Mara's voice cracked. "Some kind of magic or ritual or..." "There isn't." He cupped her face, movement slower now, like he had to consciously remember how bodies worked. "This is the cost. I knew it going in. Don't try to fix what can't be fixed." But Mara couldn't accept that. Wouldn't accept that. She spent the next 2 weeks researching everything she could find on Nephilim, on fragmentation, on soul deterioration. She contacted people she shouldn't have contacted. People who existed in the shadows of the supernatural world. Hunters and witches and things that didn't have names. None of them could help. "He's already gone," one witch told her over a phone call that cost $300. "You're just watching the echo. The person you love doesn't exist anymore, just pieces pretending to be whole." Mara threw her phone across the room and sobbed until her body ached. The baby kicked harder than usual, responding to her mother's anguish. And Mara felt something through the connection she shared with Kale's essence. Pain. His pain. Like the baby was a conduit, letting her feel what he felt. And what he felt was agony. Constant. Unending. The war inside him burning through what was left of his consciousness. She found him that night on the roof of her building, wings fully manifested, standing on the edge like he was contemplating flight. Or fall. "Don't." The word came out as a command. "Don't you dare leave me before she's born. Don't you dare rob her of meeting her father." Kyle turned, and Mara's breath caught. His face was wrong now, the division more pronounced. The pale side looked almost translucent, like she could see through him to something beyond. The dark side looked solid but wrong. Shadows moving beneath the surface that had nothing to do with tattoos. "I don't know how much longer I can hold on." His voice was barely his anymore. Angel and demon speaking at different times now, creating an echo effect that made her head hurt. "Every second is agony. Every breath is war. And I'm so tired, Mara. I'm so tired of fighting myself." She climbed onto the roof's edge beside him, dangerous with her pregnant belly but not caring. "Then fight for her. For us. You said loving us was worth every fragment. Prove it. Stay until she's born. Let her know she was wanted. That her father loved her enough to hold himself together just to meet her." Tears tracked down his face, silver on one side, black as oil on the other. "What if I can't? What if I fragment completely before then? What if the last thing I do is hurt you both?" "You won't." Mara took his hand, the one that was still mostly solid, and pressed it to her stomach. "Feel that? She's strong. She's fighting too. Fighting. To exist in a body that's half angel, half demon, all impossible. She gets that from you. So if she can fight, so can you. The baby kicked against his palm, and something shifted in Cale's expression. A moment of clarity, of presence, of the person he'd been before fragmentation started eating him alive. "I'll try." The promise came out broken. For her, "I'll try." The contractions started 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night, violent and wrong. Too early. 8 months instead of 9. Mara woke up screaming, fluid soaking the sheets, pain ripping through her abdomen like claws. Cale was there instantly, his fragmentation forgotten in the face of her crisis. "The baby's coming. It's too soon. She's not ready. Tell her that." Mara gritted through another contraction. "Because she's coming anyway." They couldn't go to a hospital, couldn't risk doctors seeing what the baby was. Instead, Kyle called someone, a woman who appeared in Mara's apartment 20 minutes later, carrying a bag of medical supplies and wearing the expression of someone who'd seen too much supernatural horror to be surprised by anything. "I'm Sienna," she said, all business. "I've delivered 7 Nephilim babies. 6 survived. Let's make your daughter the 7th. The labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of pain that felt like being torn apart from the inside. The baby's dual nature fighting Mara's human body, angel and demon both trying to be born and neither able to without destroying her. Kyle never left her side. Even as his fragmentation worsened, even as his wings flickered in and out of existence, even as his voice became more echo than person, he held her hand and talked her through every contraction. "You're strong. You can do this. She's almost here. Just hold on." Somewhere around hour 12, Mara started hemorrhaging. Blood everywhere. Too much blood. Sienna's face went pale. "I need to take the baby now or we lose them both." "Do it." Cale's voice was pure. Command, angel and demon finally speaking in unison for the first time in months. Save them both. What happened next was a blur of pain and panic. Sienna cutting. Kyle using the last of his angelic power to heal even as his demonic side tried to interfere. Mara screaming as something was pulled from her body, feeling like her soul was being ripped out. And then a different sound. High and piercing and furious. A baby crying. Mara's vision swam, darkness creeping at the edges, but she fought too. Stay conscious. Needed to see, needed to know. Sienna placed a tiny, squirming bundle on her chest. "It's a girl. She's perfect." Perfect was wrong. Perfect was right. She was both and neither and everything in between. Her daughter had Mara's nose, Cale's sharp chin, and eyes that were impossible. The left eye pale gray, almost colorless, like winter fog. The right eye dark, not quite red but close, like embers buried in ash. And down the center of her tiny face, the faintest line. Not a scar, just a division. Light on one side, shadow on the other. "She's beautiful." Mara's voice came out wrecked. "She's ours." She looked up at Cale, wanting to see his face, wanting to share this moment, and watched him shatter. Not metaphorically, literally shatter. The fragmentation that had been eating him for months finally completed. His body burst into light and shadow, angel and demon finally separating, unable to coexist anymore. "No." The word ripped from Mara's throat. "No, you promised. You promised to stay." But he was already gone. The angel half shot upward, pure light disappearing through the ceiling. The demon half sank downward, shadows absorbed by the floor. And what was left of Cale, the person, the consciousness, the man she loved, scattered into nothing. The baby's cries intensified, like she felt her father's death through whatever connection they shared. Mara clutched her daughter to her chest and sobbed, feeling Cale's absence like an amputation. He'd held on just long enough to see her born, to know she was real, to know they'd succeeded, and then he'd let go. Sienna cleaned up in silence, giving Mara space to grieve. When she finally spoke, her voice was gentle. "What will you name her?" Mara looked down at her daughter, this impossible child born of love and damnation and terrible choices, at eyes that held both light and dark, at a face that would never be just one thing. Kaya. The name came to her fully formed. It means keeper of the keys, because she's the key to everything, to my freedom, to his sacrifice, to a future neither of us thought possible. The baby, Kaya, stopped crying, looked up at her mother with those dual-colored eyes that saw too much, and something passed between them. Understanding, acceptance, love. "Your father loved you," Mara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He gave everything so you could exist. And I promise you, every day of my life I'll make sure you know that. I'll make sure you know you were wanted, that you were worth it, that you're not a curse or a mistake. You're a choice, our choice, and you're perfect." Kaya made a soft sound, something between a coo and a sigh, and Mara felt it, felt Kale's essence, the pieces of him that lived inside their daughter responding. Not gone, not really, just transformed, living in a new way, through her, through the child they'd created from impossible love, through the future they'd bought with fragments of soul and terrible sacrifice. Outside, dawn broke, light streaming through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. A new day, a new life, a new beginning bought at devastating cost. Mara held her daughter and wept for the man who'd loved them enough to unmake himself, for the father Kaya would never know but would carry inside her forever, for the love that had been powerful enough to create life, but not powerful enough to survive it. And somewhere, in the space between light and shadow, she swore she felt something, a presence, a warmth, a whisper that sounded like two voices speaking as one. "I love you, both of you, always." Then it faded, leaving only memory and the weight of impossible choices, but also hope, because Kaya was here, breathing, living. Proof that love, even broken love, could create something beautiful from ashes. Asmodeus came for payment on Mara's 30th birthday, exactly as promised. Kaya was 3 weeks old, sleeping in a bassinet Mara had bought secondhand, wrapped in blankets that smelled like lavender and desperation. Mara sat beside her, one hand resting on her daughter's chest, feeling the rise and fall of breath that still felt like a miracle. The temperature dropped. Shadows pooled. And he was there, wearing his human suit of darkness, smiling with too many teeth. "Happy birthday, artist." Asmodeus moved closer, eyes fixed on the bassinet. "I've come to collect." Mara stood, positioning herself between him and Kaya. "The contract states payment of a soul from my bloodline. She satisfies the terms. Take her and leave." The words tasted like poison, like betrayal, like every nightmare that had kept her awake since Kaya was born. But this was the deal. This was the choice. Her freedom bought with her daughter's suffering. Asmodeus laughed, that grinding glass sound that made her teeth ache. "Oh, I will take her, but not yet. She's an infant, useless to me. No, I'll return when she's grown, when she's powerful, when she's learned to use those dual natures warring inside her. Then I'll collect." Horror crawled up Mara's spine. "What? Did you think I'd take a baby? What would I do with a crying, helpless thing?" He circled the bassinet like a shark. "No, the contract is satisfied. Your debt is paid. But the payment, the actual collection, that happens when she reaches maturity, when she's 21, old enough to understand what she is, what she's paying for." "You're giving me 21 years with her?" Mara's voice cracked. "Why?" "Because watching you love her, raise her, bond with her, only to lose her anyway will be far more delicious than simply taking her now." His smile widened. "Every birthday, every milestone, every moment of joy will be poisoned by the knowledge that she's not really yours." She's mine, on loan. And when the time comes, when I rip her from your arms, the grief will be exquisite. Rage, hot and primal, flooded through Mara. You sick bastard. Perhaps, but I'm a sick bastard who honors his contracts. He leaned closer to the bassinet, and Kaya stirred, whimpering. Such potential, such power, half angel, half demon, all mine. I wonder which nature will dominate by the time she's grown. Will she be her father's compassion, or his hunger? She'll be herself. Mara's hands clenched into fists. And she'll fight you. We both will. Every day, every year. We'll find a way to break this. Many have tried, all have failed. Asmodeus straightened, adjusting his suit of shadows. But, please, do try. It makes the inevitable so much sweeter. 21 years, Mara Chen. Raise her well. Love her fiercely. Because when I return, she won't remember any of it. Won't remember you. She'll be mine, completely. And you'll be nothing but a ghost she can't quite recall. Then he was gone, leaving only sulfur and the crushing weight of 21 years that would never be enough. Mara collapsed beside the bassinet, pulling Kaya into her arms. Holding her so tight, the baby squirmed in. Protest. I won't let him have you. I swear. We'll find a way. Your father gave everything so you could live. I won't let his sacrifice be for nothing. Kaya looked up at her with those impossible eyes, one pale, one dark, and made a soft cooing sound. And through the connection, the piece of Kale's essence that lived inside their daughter, Mara felt something. Not words, just feeling, warmth, comfort, love. He was still there, not gone, just changed, living through Kaya, protecting through her. The years that followed were hard. Mara closed her tattoo studio. Couldn't risk Asmodeus using clients to spy on them. Instead, she did freelance design work online, barely making rent, living off ramen and fear and the desperate hope that somehow, someday, she'd find a way to break the contract. Kaya grew up knowing what she was. Mara couldn't lie to her, couldn't pretend. So she told her daughter everything, about the contract, about Kale, about the sacrifice, about the price. Am I bad? Kaya asked at 7 years old, sitting on their fire escape, watching the city breathe below. Because I'm half demon? No, baby. You're not bad. You're balanced. Mara pulled her close. You have your father's compassion and his strength. You have choices. That's what makes you human, even if you're not fully human. Do you wish I was never born? The question was small. Scared. Do you wish you'd just let him take you instead? Mara's heart shattered. Never. Not once. Not ever. You're the best thing I ever created. Better than any art. Better than any life I could have lived. You're my daughter, and I would make the same choice 1,000 times. Kaya's dual eyes filled with tears. I miss him, Dad, even though I never met him. I feel him sometimes, in my dreams, in my chest, like he's still here. He is. Mara touched Kaya's heart. Right here. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, every time you fight for what's right, that's him. That's his love, still protecting you. The angel hunters came when Kaya was 12. 3 of them, dressed in white, wielding weapons that glowed with holy light. They cornered Kaya after school, ready to execute the abomination. Kaya's demon side manifested for the first time. Shadows erupted from her skin, power she didn't know how to control, raw and terrifying. She would have killed them if Mara hadn't arrived, hadn't thrown herself between her daughter and the hunters, screaming for mercy. She's a child. She's innocent. Please. The lead hunter looked at Kaya, at this 12-year-old girl crying and terrified and covered in shadows she couldn't dismiss, and something shifted in his expression. Get her out of the city. Go somewhere remote. and teach her control, because next time we won't hesitate." They ran, moved to a small town in Montana where nobody asked questions, where Kaya could practice controlling her dual nature without attracting attention, where they could pretend, for just a little while, that they were normal, but they weren't normal, would never be normal. Kaya learned to manifest her father's wings, white on the left, black on the right. Learned to heal with angelic light and destroy with demonic shadow. Learned to walk the line between both, neither fully one nor the other. "I don't want to be his weapon," Kaya said at 16, voice breaking. "When he comes for me, when Asmodeus collects, I don't want to be used to hurt people." "Then don't be." Mara gripped her daughter's shoulders. "Your father chose love over obedience. He broke himself rather than hurt another innocent. You have that same choice. No matter what Asmodeus does, you always have a choice. But what if I'm not strong enough?" Tears streamed down Kaya's face, silver on one side, black on the other. "What if the demon side wins? What if I become the monster everyone thinks I am? Then I'll be there to remind you who you really are." Mara pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'll be there to fight beside you, to pull you back, to never, ever give up on you." The 20th birthday came too fast. 1 year left, 365 days until Asmodeus returned. Mara had spent 2 decades researching, had contacted every supernatural entity she could find, had exhausted every option, every loophole, every possibility. There was no way out. The contract was ironclad. At 21, Kaya would belong to Asmodeus, would become his weapon, would lose herself to demonic servitude, unless she chose differently. "There's one option we haven't considered," Kaya said on her 20th birthday, sitting on the same fire escape where Mara had once sat with her father. "I could die, before he collects. Contract can't be fulfilled if I don't exist." "No." The word came out as a roar. "Absolutely not. Your father gave everything so you could live. I won't let you throw that away." "But Mom, what kind of life is this?" Kaya's voice cracked. "Always running, always hiding, always waiting for the day I become a monster. Maybe death is mercy. Maybe it's the only way to win." Mara grabbed her daughter's face, forcing eye contact. "Listen to me. Your father held himself together through agony because he believed your life had value, because he believed you deserved a chance. And you've used that chance beautifully. You've chosen kindness when you could have chosen cruelty. You've saved people when you could have destroyed them. You've been everything he hoped you'd be. Don't end that now. Don't let Asmodeus win by making you believe you're not worth fighting for." "Then what do we do?" Kaya sobbed. "How do we fight a demon lord who owns my soul? We fight the only way your father taught us." Mara pulled her daughter close. "With love, with choice, with the belief that even impossible things can be overcome if we're willing to pay the price." The final year passed in a blur of desperate preparation. Mara taught Kaya everything she knew. Every trick, every bit of supernatural knowledge she'd accumulated. Every way to resist demonic influence. And Kaya trained, pushed her dual nature to its limits, learned to use angel and demon in tandem, the way her father had, creating something new, something powerful, something that might, just might, be enough. On the night before Kaya's 21st birthday, they sat together on the fire escape one last time. "I'm not afraid," Kaya said, and it was almost true. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm grateful. For you, for Dad, for every day I got that I shouldn't have had. He'd be so proud of you." Mara's voice was thick with tears. "So proud of the woman you've become." "Do you think he's watching?" Kaya looked up at the stars. "Somewhere?" "I know he is." Mara touched her daughter's chest, right over her heart. "Right here. Always." They held each other as midnight approached, as the final seconds of Kaya's 20th year ticked away, as the debt came due, And when Asmodeus appeared, manifesting in shadows and malice, they stood, together, mother and daughter, human and Nephilim, ready to face whatever came next. "It's time," Asmodeus purred. "Time to collect what's mine." Kaya stepped forward, wings manifesting, white and black spreading wide. Her eyes glowed, pale and dark, and when she spoke, her voice echoed with power. "I'm not yours. I never was. I'm my father's daughter, my mother's child, and I choose my own path." Asmodeus laughed. "You think you have a choice?" "I know I do." Kaya's hands filled with light and shadow both. "Because he taught me. Through every fragment of his soul that lives in me, through every sacrifice, through every moment of love, he taught me that choice is the most powerful magic that exists." "Then choose." Asmodeus spread his arms. "Serve me willingly, or be taken by force. Either way, you're mine." Kaya looked back at Mara one last time. Smiled. A smile that held both light and shadow, both her parents, both impossible love and terrible sacrifice. "I choose neither," she said, it like a prayer, like a promise, like an ending and a beginning both. "I choose the third option, the one my father would have chosen. I choose love." And she flew. Not away, not toward Asmodeus, but up, toward the space between earth and heaven where angels and demons both feared to go, toward the place where her father had shattered, toward the impossible. Mara watched her daughter disappear into light and shadow both, felt the connection between them stretch and hold, and knew that Kaya had found it, the loophole, the escape, the way to be free. By choosing to exist in the space between, by refusing to be claimed by either heaven or hell, by becoming something new, something her father had always been, but never had the courage to fully embrace. Free. In the end, Mara's choice wasn't between right and wrong. It was between two impossibilities, and she chose the one that let her daughter breathe. Kyle gave pieces of his soul, so a child he'd never truly know could exist. Proving that love isn't about saving yourself. It's about choosing someone else's chance at life over your own existence. And Kaya, born from a contract written in blood and desperation, became something neither heaven nor hell could claim. She became free. Not because the system allowed it, but because she refused to accept that her worth was defined by the circumstances of her birth. So ask yourself, if you were Mara, could you condemn a child to save yourself? If you were Kale, would you fragment your soul for someone else's survival? And if you were Kaya, would you accept the destiny others wrote for you? Or would you carve your own path through the impossible? These aren't easy questions. They don't have comfortable answers. But they're the questions that define us. The choices we make when there are no good options. The love we give when it costs us everything. The courage to exist when the world says we shouldn't. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ends with survival, sacrifice, and the stubborn belief that love, even broken love, can create miracles from ashes. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that even impossible choices can lead to beautiful outcomes. Subscribe for more stories that don't shy away from the hard truths about love, sacrifice, and what it means to fight for the people who matter. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply choose to keep existing, keep loving, and keep believing that we're worth the fight.